welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're tackling, well, a huge question. What does it really mean to be free? And our main source for this is a really fascinating text. It's called Freeing Our Will. And it tries to do something almost impossible.
Right. It's aiming to deliver a kind of common sense spirituality.
Exactly. One that can resonate even with, the most dedicated skeptic.
It's a really interesting approach because it immediately sort of sidesteps the traditional philosophical debate.
You mean the whole do we have free will or are we just determined argument?
That's the one. It just pushes it aside.
Absolutely. The mission here isn't to argue if we have free will. It's more about recognizing that the very existence of the idea of free will is, well, it's a profound hint about us.
That wrestling with the concept is maybe the point.
Yes, that it's an emergent property of being human.
And to do that, the sources immediately reframe what freedom even is. They reach back into, well, ancient wisdom to kind of flip the script.
Away from just simple choice.
Exactly, and more toward alignment. They bring up Goethe, who had that warning that none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free.
I remember that quote. And he said the ultimate freedom is to do willingly what he must do. But wait a second. Doing what you must do. Doesn't that just sound like fatalism? How do they get around that?
That's the central paradox, isn't it? It suggests that real freedom isn't about having zero constraints. It's about the voluntary choice to align your will with a greater necessary purpose.
So it turns necessity into participation.
Precisely.
I see. So the sources we're diving into today, and we've got myths, complexity, science, philosophy, they're all exploring that intersection. And at the very heart of it is this specific definition of human imagination.
Yes. They call it the generative gestalt of all our deeply entangled memories.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Let's break that down. Gestalt.
A gestalt is an organized whole that's perceived as more than the sum of its parts, right? So imagination here isn't just, daydreaming inside your own head. It's an active process. It's where our whole field of memory is constantly structuring and filtering and generating our perception of reality in this moment. It's the engine of our story.
Okay, we need to keep that generative engine in mind. So where do we start? The foundations in cultural wisdom.
I think we have to. We have to start with mythology and religion. Because, whether you see them as literal truth or just the greatest works of human art, they are absolutely central to culture.
Joseph Campbell's whole thing.
Exactly. He famously noted that the core truth is singular, even if the sages speak of it by many names.
And other thinkers, like Lance Grande, they see major religions as these complex evolutionary branches.
Mm-hmm. They're profound systems for organizing human meaning.
And these stories, they don't just entertain, they protect. I'm thinking of Jordan Peterson here when he talks about how culture stabilizes us.
That's a great point. He has that incredible line.
Something we do not see protects us from something we do not understand.
The thing we do not see is culture. The thing we do not understand is the chaos that gave rise to culture.
That just nails it, doesn't it?
It's the perfect way to put it. Culture gives us structure,
Yeah.
the known world, the norms, predictability. And if that breaks down, the chaos comes rushing back in, and people will do almost anything to restore order.
Even destructive things.
Often destructive things.
Okay, so if the whole point of our cultural operating system is to hold back the chaos, what's the most powerful tool encoded in that system?
It's what the sources call the core cultural epiphany. It's voluntary self-sacrifice.
That's simple.
It's the foundation of everything, the integrated mind, the stable community. It's the idea that you choose to put something else, your future self, your family, an ideal above your own immediate selfish needs.
That's the mechanism that stops us from just, well, self-destructing.
It's the ultimate antidote to chaos.
That's a huge weight to put on a person, though. This constant need to transcend yourself. Which brings us back to this idea they proposed, the forgiving interlude, a practical way out of the free will debate.
This is such a clever move because it demands you participate no matter what you believe.
How does that work?
Okay, so if you land on the side of no free will, we're all determined by the past, then you must forgive.
Because we couldn't have done anything different.
Exactly. Forgiveness is the only logical response to an inevitable past.
And if you do believe in free will,
then you must use that power, that will, to make the most transformative choice possible, which is to forgive.
So either way you slice it.
The required action is the same. Forgive and move forward. It forces participation over just, passive debate.
And this kind of integrated thinking, it's not new, is it?
Not at all. We see this with someone like Pythagoras way back in the 6th century BC.
Pythagoras. We think of the triangle guy, right?
Yeah.
Mathematics.
Right, but he was so much more than that. He's often credited with inventing philosophy itself. And for him, it wasn't these separate boxes, it was a combination of shamanic meaning making, things like healing, ritual
Right.
with rational argumentation,
Very good.
with mathematics. He used logic and math to understand the deep structure of reality, which then informed his spiritual practice, a total synthesis.
Okay, so let's make a transition now from that ancient framework to modern science. Because the way these ideas are starting to rhyme is, well, it's pretty wild. Let's talk about chaos.
Yes, because chaos isn't what we think it is.
It's not just random destruction.
Not at all. The really surprising thing from physics is that chaos doesn't just destroy order, it can create it.
How?
Well, the physicist Sabine Hossenfelder notes that even the laws of nature, the symmetries that define our universe, might actually be emergent from some underlying chaos.
So chaos is like a giant washing machine. Only the most stable patterns survive the tumbling, and they get amplified into what looks like a law.
That's a really good way to think about it. Chaos washes out the noise and leaves the resilient structures behind. And this idea gives a real scientific grounding to the entire hero's journey story.
And there's a specific term for this, isn't there?
There is. It's called self-organizing criticality.
Okay, that sounds technical. Let's unpack that. Criticality.
So, self-organizing criticality was pioneered by Per Bach. It describes systems that naturally evolve to a boundary state,
A boundary between what?
between complete rigid order on one side and total destructive chaos on the other. Think of a rainforest. It's highly ordered, but it's also incredibly flexible. If it's too rigid, it breaks. If it's too chaotic, it just falls apart.
So criticality is that sweet spot in the middle, the sweet
Yeah.
spot where the system is both stable and adaptable.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Biological systems, especially the human brain, function best at or near this critical state. Yeah, if your brain is too ordered, you get things like epilepsy or just rigid dogmatic thinking. If it's too chaotic, you lose focus. You might even have psychosis. Our most creative, effective, adaptive thinking happens when we are balanced right on that knife's edge.
And cognitive scientists have connected this directly to psychology.
They have. People like John Vervaeke and Brett Anderson, they call it relevance realization.
Our ability to filter all the infinite data out there and just figure out what matters right now.
And they argue that the hero's journey, that meta myth we see in every culture, is the psychological story of self-organizing criticality in action.
Okay, let's trace that. So you start in a stable state, low entropy, your known world.
Your order.
Then an anomaly appears, the call to adventure. And that forces you to descend into chaos.
And that descent is a huge spike in cognitive entropy, uncertainty, information overload.
But the heroic part is the voluntary confrontation with that chaos.
That's the key. And by doing that, you reemerge into a higher state of order. You've learned something new, you've adapted. Your world is now more complex and more resilient than before.
So the mechanism of insight is literally a move from one critical state to a higher one.
It is.
That makes the hero's journey. I mean, it's not just a good story, it's a cognitive survival guide.
It is. And Vervaeke deepens this argument in three ways. First, he says myth is intergenerational distributed cognition.
So it's how we pass down wisdom over thousands of years, a kind of cultural ratcheting.
Yes. Compressing complex lessons into memorable patterns.
And second, those patterns aren't fixed, they evolve.
Right. It's relevance realization through data compression, but also continual variation, evolutionary storytelling.
And the third point.
The tragic comic element, the idea of hubris. It's there to balance the heroic, to remind us that we are, and this is a quote, simultaneously finite, yet capable of self-transcendence.
We're bound, but we can leap.
We can.
This connects so well to this other idea from Arthur M. Young, the inventor of the Bell helicopter.
Oh, this is a profound model of reality. He argued that physical reality, molecules, and matter comes into being through increasing strictures on freedom.
Meaning things become more determined as they become more solid.
Basically, yes. Going from pure energy to matter means you sacrifice degrees of freedom. A molecule in a crystal lattice is locked in. It has the lowest degree of freedom. It's determined.
Okay.
But here is the paradox. That deterministic floor isn't the defeat of consciousness, it's the prerequisite for it.
You mean you need a stable, predictable world to do anything free?
Exactly. You need a stable floor to be a ballerina. Determinism provides the reliable constraints that make freedom meaningful.
that completely reframes the universe. It's like a perfectly designed stage for purposeful action.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring this back to our starting point then. Imagination, the generative gestalt of all our deeply entangled memories. If it's the engine of our reality, how do we use it to, well, transcend that deterministic floor?
It connects to the ancestral view of imagination. The scholar Mark Vernon points out that for our ancestors, imagination wasn't just making up fantasies inside your head. It was the capacity for receiving a stream of insights from the outside.
A connection to some greater organizing principle.
Yes.
That sounds a lot like what happens when we engage in things like play or ritual.
It is. Shamanism, which you could call the first psychotechnology, used disruptive strategies. Fasting, dancing, sensory deprivation.
And
To intentionally break patterns of consciousness, because the very adaptability that makes us successful also gets us locked into patterns that stop working.
so shamanism was a way to force the brain back toward that flexible critical state.
It was an ancient cognitive reset button,
And play, or lila in Sanskrit,
which means divine play, creation, and love.
is like the biological, everyday version of that same mechanism.
Absolutely. Stuart Brown's work shows that play is a profound biological drive. It's not trivial, it's how we explore the boundaries of a system without real world consequences.
Which is why Plato said we should live our lives playing at certain pastimes, sacrificing, singing, and dancing.
He was linking our play to the underlying spirit of reality itself.
And this scales all the way up, doesn't it, to the whole cosmos. The sources bring in Alan Watts' thought experiment.
Right. If the divine experienced infinite perfection, what's left? What's the only thing left to experience?
A real surprise.
A real surprise. And to get that, you have to impose a divine handicap
You have to limit your own memory and power. Forget you're infinite.
and enter a very specific, messy turning point in history, like ours. The universe becomes the ultimate game where the player handicaps himself to make the challenge real and the outcome genuinely unknown.
So we, the players on the field, are fragments of a cosmic player who willingly entered the game with amnesia.
That's the implication. And Ogi Ogas ties this to complexity science. He argues reality is governed by two dynamics. Aimlessness, that's just physics, causality and purpose. That's conscious striving.
And time itself emerges from the interplay between the two.
Exactly. And the big synthesis is that when we strive toward the impossible, like a heroic feat, we literally level up the evolution of reality itself.
Our purpose isn't just local, it matters on a cosmic scale.
It does.
Okay, let's try to bring this all home. We've got culture as a shield, the hero's journey as criticality, the cosmos as a self handicapping game. What do they call this unified worldview?
The term they use is poetic meta-naturalism.
Poetic meta-naturalism.
The idea is that reality is inherently creative. It's always producing new patterns that rhyme with the past. It's a way forward that accepts physical reality but also makes room for meaning and purpose. It's an answer to that feeling of modern alienation.
But this worldview, it puts a huge amount of responsibility on us, doesn't it?
It really does.
We're not just determined molecules. We are active, generative participants in the cosmos' own process of self-discovery.
That's it, exactly. And Ian McGilchrist warns about this. He says that having abandoned the idea of a transcendent God, our new idol becomes ourselves, our own power.
Our power to subdue nature.
Right. And he says it's easy to just reject the idea of God entirely. The real duty, the harder task, is to find out the core of wisdom in this ill-understood, though universal insight.
We're partners in creation.
And we bear the ultimate responsibility for our choices.
So it seems like the ultimate point of this whole deep dive is that the value of the idea of free will isn't whether it's philosophically true.
No.
Its value is the moral obligation it creates, the imperative to participate in a transformative way.
We are, in a sense, self-determining meta-algorithms striving toward goals we ourselves choose.
And our greatest paradox is that the thing that makes us most human, our adaptability, is also what can lock us into failure.
And the collective wisdom of the myths, which is now being mirrored by the science of criticality, gives us the map back to that flexible, fertile border state.
So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. We mentioned Einstein's famous line, God does not play with dice.
Ah,
But what if the goal is a real surprise? What if God does play dice, but only if the dice are loaded against himself?
that would be the necessary handicap, wouldn't it? To make sure the game is truly worth playing.
And that idea changes how we should interact with the world.
It does. It means the goal isn't just to read books and absorb information. The goal is transformation. As the mystics St. Augustine and Angelus Silesius tell us, look up, look below at all of creation. And then the final step is to go and become yourself the words and yourself the being.